Sick and tired of being tired. Can't pick a side the gym alive. Private sides if we live alive. Promise mama not to fit nobody. Sing black turn burgundy.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Real Talk Beyond the Headlines. I hope this is not the first time you're hearing this, but this is Real Talk Beyond the Headlines.
Welcome back to all our followers.
Yes. As always, we're repping for Atlanta. And we got Tunde out here, along with Herschel, and we're going to be talking some interesting stuff today.
Now, before we get into the interesting question we really want to ask, we've got a special guest on, our boy Joe from college. Joe, say what's up to the fans real quick. And do you mind breaking down, some of your sports background and what your expertise may be?
Of course. What's good, BTH fam? This is Joe. Hailing from West Africa, Liberia to be particular. So I grew up playing soccer or football, as we call it. Came out here when I was younger, started playing a little American football, in the backyard kind of stuff. Saw a lot of people get injured in terrible ways. Wasn't trying to have that happen to these legs. So stuck with my sport. Played high school, college for a little bit, but really have been just getting into all different sports. I love sports, so not as much baseball, watch a good bit of basketball, but as always and always will be, soccer is what I live and breathe. Barcelona, I bleed, Blaugrana, so that's kind of me when it comes to sports.
So it's really interesting that you mentioned Barcelona, because one of the players for Barcelona is directly involved in the conversation we want to have today. Now, you understand, that we're starting to wrap up the NBA, the 2015-2016 NBA season, and Steph Curry has been taking over the world, essentially. Shooting from the parking lot, crossing everybody, just making it look easy and just really turning the basketball world on its head. The comparison that we would like for you to make today with us is to discuss his greatness versus the one, the only Lionel Messi. Do you feel like there's a comparison that could be made there?
So, to be honest, for a lot of different reasons, I feel like not at this moment in time.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. I am a huge fan of just being a true artist at what you do and just mastering what you do so well that it becomes ridiculous. Watching Steph Curry play against OKC the other night, that last final shot from, as you already mentioned, the parking lot, essentially. First of all, there are just certain moments in sports where somebody does something so good where all you can do is laugh, because you understand that defense, no preparation, no amount of anything you did as a coach could prepare your team for that athlete pulling something of that nature off. So, that being said, I'm a huge fan of Steph Curry. I'm a huge fan of what he's been doing so far. The thoughts of what he can potentially do, I love it. But, that being said, just knowing Messi, knowing soccer in general, looking through what's happened and for how long it's been happening with Messi, I don't think Steph Curry is there yet.
So for you, are you saying the only real factor right now is longevity? Because one of my biggest points would be that Steph Curry does not play an incredibly physical form of basketball. So what he's doing, the art that he's performing, he's going to be able to put on for a long time. Would you even say that, is Messi still, heading towards his prime?
Now, the interesting thing about Lionel Messi is there was a period where he won 4 Ballon d'Ors consecutively, which unprecedented. Ballon d'Or, for those who don't know, is the greatest player in soccer in the world, period, in the world. And so Messi won that consecutively 4 years in a row. Just incredibly hard to do, because you also have the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo, who's playing against Messi right now, which Ronaldo is as it's been said before, if this were in any other time and Messi didn't exist, Ronaldo would be a god. And to have a character that is at that high level is the direct competition with another character who's at that high level, and one of them is clearly beating that other out so consistently, that says a lot. Anyway.
To me, that sounded like you just described LeBron James. How do you feel about that?
You could say that. You could say that. I will get to that point, I think, a little later, because I think there are a lot of differences with basketball and soccer, in that certain of these players, when it comes to soccer, players like Ronaldo and Messi, they don't come around as often as I would say basketball has seemed to have been happening recently. But that's a different conversation for a second. But the question was, is Messi still in his prime?
Go ahead.
Now,
all right, Joe, check this out.
Is Messi still? Yeah.
So
let me just finish this point with the prime thing. You addressed that. Messi, 4 Ballon d'Ors. Then there was a year off where Ronaldo won it. Messi came back this year and won it. Last year was arguably his best year out of so many great years. And the issue is this year, he's playing almost as well or even better than he did last year. So a lot of people who know Messi's 28 right now. Steph Curry's 27, as I understand. A lot of people who know Messi and just watching him play week in, week out, he just scored 3 goals earlier this week. He scored a hat trick earlier this week. Messi is actually, in a lot of ways, still getting better. He is still perfecting. Messi is actually, this year, has scored more free kick goals than he has. The thing with Messi is he seems to keep honing different parts of his craft. So this year, it seems like he's really focusing on free kick goals, and he's scored a lot of those now. Last year, it's just been so many different things. So to the answer, is he in his prime yet? I think his prime is just kind of being extended because he keeps adding more elements to his game.
Hey, that was a very good point, Joe. And you brought up scoring, and I would like to say that as far as Steph Curry, I think he's very similar to what you said about Messi, in that we've not seen anyone like this who scores as just in volume as Curry does, as efficiently as Curry does, as, pretty much at free will like Curry does. His 3-point game is just absolutely unbelievable. He's knocked down from, anywhere beyond 30 feet, which is unheard of in the NBA. Like, he's knocked down. Some guys can hit it regularly. Curry can hit it whenever he wants. So I definitely think we can agree that both players are one of the best scorers that we've seen in either sport. I don't watch that much soccer, and our fans, that could be true too. You think you could tell us a little bit about Messi's scoring ability?
Yeah. So, there are so many records that Messi has broken that would it would take too long to read this out. But Messi is essentially a living legend as he stands now, as in when it comes to the top scorer in Europe. When it comes to most goals scored for Barcelona, most goals scored in the Spanish Premier League, Messi's beating his own records every goal that he scores. And he's done it in shorter time than anybody else. Like, for instance, he's the leading goal scorer in Spanish League history with 253 goals in 289 matches, surpassing the record of 251 goals that stood since 1955. The great thing with Messi is a lot of these, it's interesting, there was a week where there were 3 games that were played, and in each of those games, he broke another goal-scoring record. One was Barca's goal-scoring record, one was the league goal-scoring record, and one was the Champions League goal-scoring record. That was all in the course of 1 week. He's the only goal scorer in the Champions League to lead the Champions League for 4 consecutive seasons. And the Champions League, for most of you who don't know, is all the biggest teams in Europe. Whereas with America and basketball, you're playing against all the biggest teams. You're playing against all the different teams in the country, which is great. However, when it comes to Europe, each country has its own league. Each league has its own big teams that has a lot of money. And so the Champions League is all the biggest teams in the world put together in one situation, whereas you can have your league being not as tough, but then playing the Champions League and you're playing against great players from everywhere. And Messi is the leading scorer, or was the leading scorer for a little bit. Ronaldo, they go back and forth at this point. But Messi's ability to score goals is ridiculous on a prolific level.
Although it is very, very tough to compare, do you feel like at some point Steph Curry could be seen in that similar platform? Or is there ever a comparison that you're able to make between, these sports? Could you say a Jordan was like a Messi, a Pele? Does that ever work in conversation to you?
Looking back over this week and really thinking about this this comparison, the issue becomes for me, every sport is going to have that situation where you got Tiger Woods is going to be the Jordan of golf, or Jordan's going to be the Tiger Woods of golf. Like, people want to make those comparisons to kind of bring things home. However, it's hard to make the comparisons. I mean, you could say, realistically, if you look at it, Steph and Messi are very similar, and they actually acknowledge that with each other. Messi's favorite basketball player right now is Steph Curry, vice versa. So there's a lot to that. However, the sports are different. If you're using it in terms of name only to say, oh, Steph can or will become the Messi of basketball, yes, you can do that. However, because the sports are so different, to make a like-for-like comparison is almost impossible, in my opinion.
Joe.
Yep.
So, one thing that I've noticed about both Curry and Messi are that both of their teams are phenomenal. Let's just get into a little bit of the Warriors. Last season, they came out of nowhere and had the best record in the NBA. Went on to win the NBA championship, and they only lost like 4 times, I think. And it was just like out of nowhere. And this season, again, out of nowhere, they're even better. They have the best record in the NBA up to this point, whatever number of games that is. And they might own the best record in the season in the NBA. Like, the Warriors are a phenomenal team led by Steph Curry. Can you give us a little bit of insight into how dominant Barcelona is right now?
Of course. So Barcelona has won the most Champions League victories in the last 10 years than any other team. Barca is at their 4th already. And not just Champions League. During 3 years ago, during the Pep Guardiola era, their last coach, Barca won they won the triple. So the triple is your domestic league, your domestic league cup, and the Champions League. So every team in Europe wants to win all 3 trophies. Barca not only wins the 3 trophies, but Barca has made a point in their last couple of years, in the last 10 years, to win more trophies than any team has ever won ever. In terms of, they win just about every competition they play in. And I think just about save 1 or 2 every now and then. But Barca wins. Right now, Barca is on 5 out of 6 championships that they've played for. They are ridiculously dominant. Right now, Barcelona is favorites out of every team in Europe to win the Champions League again, and this would have been the only time a Champions League has ever been repeated. It hasn't happened yet, of course, but with their striking force of Neymar, Luis Suarez, and Lionel Messi, they are probably the 3 most dominant players to ever be assembled together on a football field or soccer field.
So speaking of that,
to all the numbers, yeah.
I've always also noticed that Steph Curry is constantly making his teammates better as well. I may have actually just jumped in too early. Were you going to describe how Messi makes his teammates better, or is it the other way around for him beneficially?
Well, the great thing about both Steph Curry and Messi is, on teams of just great superstars, they have been able to stand out and be above and beyond. Now, Messi, in terms of making his teammates better, Messi is so great not only because of his goal scoring, but his assists, and he is a generous player. Compared to other players, Messi is the number 1 on this team. Everybody knows that. However, there have been multiple times when Messi could have scored 3 goals. Everybody wants to score a hat trick in soccer. It's like hockey. You want to score your 3 goals. Messi's been on 2 goals multiple times, and when a penalty kick came up, which Messi is the default taker of penalty kicks, he has let another player, especially Neymar, take the penalty kick, especially if Neymar was having a struggling game. Messi has kind of taken to be a mentor of Neymar, almost the same way Ronaldinho was a mentor to him. None of his teammates have anything more than just praise for him as a person and then as a player. So Messi 100% makes everybody around him better.
Yo, speaking of hat tricks, I actually was watching earlier this week, and didn't Messi get a hat trick with Barcelona scoring like 5 points?
He did. Messi got a hat trick in the Rayo game Thursday. I actually just finished watching the replay of that game.
Nice. And I actually just saw
two goals
today
against Arsenal.
Yeah, I actually just saw today, actually a few hours ago, Ronaldo ended up scoring 4 just to shut out Messi one quick time. So I'm really loving that rivalry that they've got going on as well. Do you think anyone right now in the NBA is a true rival to Steph Curry?
Well, the interesting thing with that is, I think what tends to happen with the NBA is you go through a lot of these ebbs and flows of players, and I think what tends to happen is people tend to jump relatively quickly to crowning the next king. And the argument can be made that, there have only been really, it's a generational thing. There have only been a few players that have been this dominant. But realistically, you had last year, before Steph Curry and the Warriors really started firing on the cylinders that they have been, LeBron was the official everything of basketball. Now, I think if you look at it, LeBron seems to, I think because Steph Curry's star is shining so bright, and because he's been doing so many just unbelievable things, a lot of other players who were previously heralded have been kind of falling behind just by the pure star power of Steph Curry and the Warriors. So right now, if you look at it, in my honest opinion, if you look at it, there are players. You got your LeBrons, you got your KDs, you still have a couple of players that I would honestly say on any other day, on any other year, would be seen as the rivals or could be. I mean, even you got your Russell Westbrook. Harden's gone through his phases. But
that's true.
I just feel like basketball is one of those sports where there are a lot of great players, but when one person has the hot hand, the great thing is the Warriors have been doing it for a while, but when you've got the hot hand, you're the guy. I mean,
I do think the media absolutely pumps up whenever there's a new star or a new face or some new market that they can attack. And they did do that with Steph Curry. He's absolutely kind of been boosted everywhere. But I think he's one of those few players that is going to be able to produce behind it. We're actually still living in an era where we still do that to Jordan. And Jordan hasn't been, I mean, he's always going to be great, but great. But he hasn't played for almost 20 years. Has it been 20 years?
You're right. You're right.
15 years? Yeah. Well, I get for the Bulls, I guess I should say.
Well, yeah.
I mean, as I said, I think it's for me, it's not to say that Lynn and Curry are on the same level. The thing with basketball is you have a lot of situations where when somebody's hitting it hard and playing very well, that's the new story. And the great thing about Steph Curry and the Warriors is they've been doing it for quite a time now. However, what are the other predominant stories in basketball right now? Who's hitting heavy enough to where they're being talked about? Not many other teams. I mean, you take away the Lynn thing, think about the Hawks last year. That February when they were going so crazy, that was the talked about thing. So I think the great thing is, at the end of the day, I think the numbers are going to tell that Steph Curry was, I mean, if he keeps doing what he's doing now, it's going to be crazy what the numbers say. But in terms of other players, I think have that potential. I think if KD catches a hot streak right now, if LeBron gets back on his hot streak, I think you start looking at oh, wait, what's going on over there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe, that was a really good point. And, kind of opened my eyes to something that's very true that you just mentioned. The NBA can be very fleeting for how they elevate these superstars. And, I feel like you might be the first person who's really ever challenged the Warriors and their dominance right now. I mean, the way they are looking, it's just a foregone conclusion that they'll be winning the championship. But at the same time, you're right. KD starts just hitting everything like he did MVP season. I mean, things could change. But speaking of the Warriors,
I also think, just a short introduction, I think if KD didn't foul out that game, it's a different overtime.
Yeah, KD's taking that last shot and more likely going in than what Westbrook put up.
Yep.
But speaking of Curry, speaking of the Warriors, and speaking of Messi, both of these guys just had some really dominant performances. The Warriors game, the Thunder game was about a week ago now. But Curry, he breaks the record for 3-pointers in the season, ties the record for 3-pointers in the game. Not to mention the rest of his team was playing really poorly. I think Draymond Green has 0 points going into the half. So Curry literally carried that team on his back, and then he hits that half-court game winner. We have Messi shooting a hat trick in this game earlier this week. So I'm like, I wonder what you think, Joe. Like, whose performance was more dominant? Curry just by the numbers because he was breaking records, but a hat trick, that's like one of the toughest things to do in any sport. So what do you think?
If we're talking about these last couple of games specifically, I think it's a hard thing to compare because you have different levels of teams being played against. You have so many different variables that go into it.
Right.
Now, if we're looking at just the most dominant performance that Curry's ever put up versus what I think in recent times, you're talking about scoring 3 goals. That's hard, but when Messi has been the most dominant, Messi had a game where he scored 5 goals, broke the goals for most goals scored in the Champions League. That wasn't against a hard team, but Messi scored 4 against Arsenal Barcelona was actually losing in the second leg, and Messi took the team up and scored 4 against Arsenal. Messi
incredible.
has scored a hat trick against Real Madrid when Real was one of the best teams in the world at the time, and it was at the Nou Camp, to where when Messi was going off the field, he was being clapped on by the opposing fans, and that's rare. Then you have what Messi did last year. When we're thinking the most recent, most dominant, Messi versus Bayern Munich. And I think this kind of encapsulates my argument that who's per se the most dominant. When Messi played against Bayern Munich, the goalkeeper was the number 1 goalkeeper in the world. The goalkeeper from Bayern is doing things, you could call him the Michael Jordan of goalkeeping at this point, realistically speaking.
I like that comparison.
You're looking at Bayern's defense. Bayern's defense was full of they won the World Cup, this defense, for the most part. So you're talking about players that were absolutely at the next level when it comes to all their different positions. And at some point in that game, Messi flipped the switch and said, "I'm done," and then proceeded to score 2 goals. One of them where he not only embarrassed one of the best goalkeepers or best defenders in the world, but then embarrassed one of the best goalkeepers. You can't chip a typical goalkeeper. You can definitely not chip the tallest, one of the best goalkeepers in the world. And Messi chipped him with ease. So when you're talking about dominance, I think you can't look at the games that break the records, because sometimes those games aren't even the toughest games for multiple reasons. And I think when you pick Steph Curry's most dominant performance, given all the variables, how hard the team they were playing against, what the stakes were, etc., I don't think they still even compare to where Messi's most dominant games have been for a lot of different reasons.
Yo, thanks a lot, Joe. That was actually an excellent stat that you gave us there. Are there any other things you want to ask, Tune?
Yeah. So it's been a very good conversation so far, and you've given me a lot of insight to Messi's dominance. I've always known he was a phenomenal soccer player, but hearing like numbers, stats, awards that he's won, how many is just is crazy and it's mind opening. But going back to the conversation of Curry versus Messi, right now Curry has taken control of the 3-point shot in the history of the NBA. Like, his name is synonymous with 3-point shooting. Any other person you ever thought that was true for, Reggie Miller, Ray Allen, forget it. Curry has literally assumed control of the 3-point shot. But I know Messi is very good at the free kick, and I actually remember him free kicking one on Nigeria in the World Cup last year. So that one was a little hurtful, and I remember it. But at the same time, it was so pretty. So just give us a little insight into Messi's free kick dominance, because that's a huge part of soccer.
So Messi has scored so many more free kick goals recently than any time in his career. The thing is, I think he's at 6 or 8 right now, and that's just tough. But I will say, in terms of I don't think it's the free kicks that you would say for Messi as much as, because Steph Curry, as you said, he's dominated the 3-point shot. When it comes to the free kicks, up until just recently, Ronaldo was the best free kick taker, and I think a lot of people would still say his mechanics are still even better than Messi. I think, as I said earlier, Messi's rounding out his game, and I think he's really been focusing on free kick goals now. So I don't think he's there yet to be synonymous with the free kick. I think what Messi is synonymous with is the dribbles that he puts through, and in terms of, with basketball, you have your hands and you can cross over and you can do a lot of these things. In soccer, you have to do a lot of trickier things, like with Cristiano Ronaldo. You have these step overs, you have these fancy moves, Neymar, fancy moves. You have a lot of these players. Ronaldinho was a fancy mover. With Messi's the simplest mover. All he does is dribble, but he's faster than most people. He knows how to use his body, and Messi doesn't go down at all. In a sport where a lot of people go down, Messi will get hit 3, 4, 5 times and keep going and make you look stupid and then score. So Steph Curry's dominance of the 3 is something that I don't. Messi hasn't per se had. There are a couple of things. You got your chips, but when it comes to free kicks, it's not where Messi's at right now. He's getting there though. Gotcha.
So, do you think you could agree with this, that Ronaldo and Messi are in a different stratosphere of the free kick?
100%. 100%. Ronaldo and Messi are on a different stratosphere in terms of the game. Ronaldo just a week ago made a statement saying that if everybody on his team were as good as he was, they wouldn't be losing games. Unfortunately, that's a terrible thing to say as a teammate, but realistically, yes. I mean, Ronaldo and Messi are on a whole nother level of the game, and they have been for some time. The unfortunate thing for Ronaldo is Messi's on a higher level than he is, and I mean, that speaks a lot volumes for how just stratospherically high they both, Messi is in that situation.
Right. So, we've had a very good conversation so far. 2 things that really pop out to me about why this is such a difficult topic is because, first, we have Barcelona that's been running the game for 10 years. Probably more than that, but at least for Messi's career, they have been running things, winning Champions Leagues, winning their own league, and winning all the other championships. So it's very dominant performance, and it's been happening for a long time. And the Warriors are also very dominant, but it's been much shorter, so it's really hard to compare. Additionally, we have Curry, who is a phenomenal player and has really elevated himself above everybody else in the NBA. And Messi has too, but I think that Ronaldo is, close enough for it to be not like it is with Curry. So, I don't know, Joe. What do you think now? Where do you put Messi and Curry? Where do you rank them?
I think if Curry continues to do what he's doing, again, I love what he's doing. One of the things I always hope and pray is that no athlete has to deal with injury that stops them from being where they can and eventually should be at the end of their career. So at this point, God willing, the Steph stays, healthy, Messi stays healthy. It'd be great to see where Steph ends up. At this rate, clearly he's going to end up just somewhere ridiculously in the annals of history when it's all done. Messi, at the same token, at this rate, if he is in fact doing the things that everybody thinks he's doing, aka just getting better and better, he's setting a pace that by the time he's done, it should almost be. It's not even should. It probably will not be eclipsed.
I just want to say thanks again, Joe, for calling in. That was a ton of great information that you provided for us. We're definitely going to have you back on to discuss some more things in the future, especially pertaining to soccer as the sport builds up. I also want to ask the fans, what do you guys think about the comparison between Curry, Messi, even if you want to throw Ronaldo into that conversation as well? Can these guys ever really be considered in the same stratosphere? And once again, thanks again for listening. You can hit us up at Real Talk BTH on Twitter and Gmail. Definitely let us know your thoughts, and thanks for listening. Peace.
Peace.
Yo, appreciate that, Joe.